Let's do some further work with this particular clip. It is helpful to change the view to master view. This will allow you to use Control and the mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out on the timeline. Alternatively, you can also use Control Space to set in and out point to the current clip. In this mode, the in and out view is very helpful because you'll get the full clip from left to right on the timeline, and you can now use either the buttons on the tangent panel to go to next clip or Control and the right arrow key on your keyboard to go from clip to clip with a nice view of the actual footage and its length on the timeline. It's also now much easier to go through this clip, so if you want to move forward here on the timeline, that's fairly handy now and easy to do. If you don't want to include all information with your rushes work, but basically cut out parts that you don't need with every clip, there is an opportunity of doing this inside Speedgrade XR, so you don't have to involve another application with this. You can basically trim clips inside the application. So if I want to get rid of the part with the clapperboard and really just focus on everything that's starting at the point where I just placed my playhead, I can do this as easy as this. So you just go over the area with the double arrows and basically move it to the current playhead position. There is an alternate way of doing this if you prefer another method, which will be more analytic than doing work with the mouse in the interface. You can also say you want to hit Alt-S to split right here, and then you can basically move and basically delete this part here. So by doing drag and drop onto the viewport or down underneath, wherever you leave the timeline area, you'll see that from the green icon top left on the item I'm moving, this will change into the delete icon. So now it's basically gone. If you need to recover that, no problem. It's not like the stuff has been deleted. You can still go back and basically get to the original part of it. Now let's do some work here and take a look at what's available in the grading interface. Generally speaking, if you're not working with the tangent panel to control the grading interface, you still have a very nice option of doing subtle adjustments if you go for a trackball. Also, a mouse will work with this, but we call it a virtual trackball mode, and it works best with things like the Kensington trackball. So I'll quickly go with zoom to fit by doing Control Home, so we get the full picture. And now I'll do a right mouse click into the offset here. That will change it into the virtual trackball mode. This would enable two functionalities. If you're working with the mouse, moving the mouse will basically work on chrominance here in the offset, which is also nicely reflected in the histogram. If you use the mouse wheel, it will change luminance, which is reflected here in the outer ring in the interface. Same thing with a trackball. So if I use the trackball now, that almost feels like using a control panel. Of course, you don't have interactive control, so it's one at a time, but it's a very nice way if you need to work with little equipment, especially if you have a workstation that is used while you're on the road and not in a controlled environment with all the bells and whistles. You still have very subtle control over what's going on in the interface. And on the trackball, the outer ring will basically control the ring here, so that again works similar to what a control panel would do for just a single item. This is not limited to the three items here in the interface, to gamma, gain, and offset. This will also work with the sliders. So if you don't want to hold down the left mouse while working with the temperature slider, you basically do a right mouse click on the slider, and that will move it into trackball mode, and then you can just move mouse or the trackball to get it to different levels. Once you're done, you just click the right mouse again, and that will get you out of virtual trackball mode. Again, this works for all sliders, so if I'm sure I want to change the saturation on this picture, just do a right mouse click on saturation, move the mouse or the trackball until you're satisfied, and then release it. Now in this picture, let's say you want to get more contrast in, and you want to get full blacks and make the image look crisp. That's easy to achieve. In this case, I would go for a right mouse click here in the offset wheel and come down with all color. Then go next for gain while watching the histogram, and basically go up with gain until I have full white in there. Since I changed the temperature already, which I might want to do or not, as you've seen in part 1, I was trying to basically get them in sync. Of course I don't have to, but in this case, let's say I really want to make it technically correct. So I would get them back in sync. And then as the last part, of course, you can change the gamma. And that, of course, again works with chrominance and luminance. If you decide to use temperature and the magenta slider for balancing the picture, it's recommended that you keep it that way. That will make it easier if you want to come back with this look and make changes. If you want to see what you're doing in another view, meaning doing it more analytically, there is another part of the interface that will help you achieving this. You can use Shift and Enter to go either with sliders here and the main part of the interface for gamma, gain and offset, or to see this in numerical values. This might be handy in particular when working with the tangent panels. Then you have a clear idea whether you're moving up or down without looking at the sliders in general, because that gives you only basic information, whereas this is really precise. You can toggle through these 3 different views by really just hitting Shift, Enter again and again. So this is an interactive scenario, and of course it doesn't change anything in the general layout, the way things work. So the tangent panel, for example, will work the same in either mode. Now, if you prefer a different language from this, please check out the Printer Lights panel. This will give you a limited way of working with the picture, but it is similar to what people have been doing for a very long time, just adjusting printer lights for rushes. So if that's your preferred way, you can basically really just go with these controls and go up and down as in printer lights. And you can decide whether you want to look at this as it would work on log or linear space. So the default is log, and in this case we're also looking at log images, so we of course suggest to keep it in log. You have control over what printer light behavior is in the settings. So if you check in the settings under shaders, that will give you access to how many f-stops printer points should reflect. So the default is on 8 printer points, which will be 1 f-stop in the user interface. You can change that to 12 if that's the environment you're used to be working with, or if you need to communicate that to someone else who wants to go with a different space. This will not change any work you did so far. So if you did work with printer lights and then you have to reflect it in a different space in terms of the math, you can change that later on at any time.